Y'all, something is in the air today because I am struggling so hard. This book is a lot more heavy than I thought it was going to be. This head retained zero information. I just saw, ooh, pretty. Why is this so hard? Hi everyone, how is everyone's week going? Right now there is a war between the construction people and the bird that's living in one of these branches outside of my house. I think the construction company or whatever they're doing outside of the apartment complex disturbed one of the nests for that bird, and he's pissed. That bird is 100% pissed. Anytime anyone leaves the apartment complex on the sidewalk side, that bird will attack you. Straight up follows you to the end of the block, screaming in your face, chirping in your face, and in fact, my husband got hit in the back of the head by this bird. Like the bird flew into the back of my husband's head. So yeah, tangent aside, welcome to my June TBR. This month will be my fiscal June TBR. If you guys know anything about me, is that most of my books I read on the Kindle. So I'm an ebook girly generally, and I get a lot of my books through the Libby app. But today I thought I will tackle my June TBR physical edition since I have accumulated a bit physical books in the past month, mainly because I am a little impatient and also I see pretty editions of stuff and I purchase it. No thoughts, head empty. All right, so I've seen a lot of people do TBR jars to pick out their books for the month, and I really like that idea to the point where I prepped a jar for it. It's courtesy of Anna and Audrey, as you can see here. It is a present from them at their wedding that they gave out to their guests, and I thought this was super cute. They also included these custom die, which is amazing, by the way, because they're D&D players. So dies would just represent their relationship really well. And I, for the longest time, didn't know what to do with these and the jar, but I have finally figured it out. I'm going to make a little TBR game for the future months. This month, I'm just going to stick with tackling my physical TBR because that was an idea that I had or earlier on in May. So I'm going to stick with that for now. But for future videos for TBR, definitely be on the lookout. I'm so excited to be able to use the gift that they gave out at their wedding. I held on to this for this has literally been a year. I've been holding on to this for literally a year, not knowing what to do with it. And I'm so glad I found a usage for them. And I'll definitely be showing them this video little clip so that they know that I'm putting their gift to good use. All right, now let's get straight into my June TBR. The first set of books I'm going to talk about are books I don't have on hand with me right now, or I'm planning to read it on my Kindle / listen to as an audiobook. Let's talk about my most anticipated read for the month of June, and it is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This is her first novel taking place outside of an academic setting and not inside of werewolf / vampires territories. So you already know I'm so excited for this novel. I am going to be doing a reading vlog on it because I feel like it has the hallmark making of being my favorite Ali Hazelwood book so far, and I already have 2 favorites from her. So that says that I'm putting it on a pedestal right now, and I hope that it meets my expectation. But I'm also really scared because I feel like I'm placing a lot of expectation on this book, and if it doesn't meet my expectation, I'm really scared that I'm just gonna throw it to the ground. But I'm hoping that's not the case because it has the hallmark making of being my favorite Ali Hazelwood book so far, just because of the settings and the tropes alone. We are going to have a forbidden romance in this where the main male lead and the female lead will be on opposing side of a corporate takeover. That just sounds right up my alley. So I absolutely cannot wait to read this book. Aside from the reading vlog, I am also planning to do a review of all 5 of her full-length novels since I have read all of them, and I think it will be a really good celebration / hype for her latest book that's going to be released. So be on the lookout for that after my May monthly wrap-up. The next book I'm planning to read for June is Skin of a Sinner by Avina St. Graves. This is going to be me towing back into the pool of dark romance. I feel like I, as a person, would generally enjoy dark romances, but I haven't been able to really experience any good romance because I feel like dark romance needs to be done well. Otherwise, it's just very bad. I don't know how else to describe it. A lot of the times, the main male lead need to have some redeeming traits or kill for the girl for me to enjoy. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes they're just abusive straight up. And I'm not a fan of that. So this is me tiptoeing back into the pool of dark romance after reading Butcher and Blackbird, which is what I would consider a dark romance slash rom-com. I am really invested into trying out another dark romance. So Skin of a Sinner is actually a recommendation from another YouTuber, Chriselle at Little Toron. I'm sorry if I butchered the name of your channel. I hope you forgive me if I did. But she is what I would consider the queen of dark romance. She reads a lot of dark romance and gives a very good description of the books. And I'm really excited to try out Skin of a Sinner. There is also a couple more books that she recommended on her channel, and I'm definitely going to be picking those up in later months. But for now, I'm going to stick with the book Skin of a Sinner because, guys, the comments on Goodreads got me cracked up. I'll have them all over the screen, but they are wild, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for a wild ride. And you know what? Some of them might not like it because of how wild and, dark it is, but that's the point, right? It's a dark romance. It's supposed to be unhinged. And as we all learned from my review of Butcher and Blackbird, I am 100% okay with an unhinged man as long as they're protective over the main female lead. All right, the next book I don't have on hand because I am planning to listen to it as an audiobook is There Is No Ethan by Anna Akbari. I actually heard about this book from Ashley Beck's Read, and this is in her June TBR, and it sounds right up my alley. I believe this memoir is about three women's experience in trying to investigate and expose the men whom they've all been dating. So one man has been dating all three of these women, and those three women are going to come together and tell a story about how they exposed this man for catfishing, all three of them, and possibly even more women out there. I think this book is trying to discuss about how technology is so present in today's life that it actually interferes with our relationships with each other. And it also talks about how easy it is for the presence of technology to manipulate the text, images, photos, everything that we see about each other online. And I think that is a fascinating take. If you guys don't know, I actually work in tech, and I'm really excited to see where the author stands in technology in our day-to-day life is going to be, what precautions they're going to give, and what the three women's experiences were like being entrapped in this technology world and being fooled by someone on the other side of the screen. So all in all, I think this is going to be a very interesting read, and I think I'm going to get started on it ASAP and listen to it on my downtime and when I'm at work. Now that we've talked about all the books that I don't have on hand physically, let's talk about the books that I do have physically, which is this big stack right here. Now let's pull out the first book I need to finish by June 6th, which is Abby Jimenez, Truly Yours. This book is a loan from my local library, so that's why I'm on a time crunch, and it will be my first book that I'm going to read. I actually don't know anything about this book. I am in the middle of her first book of the series, which is Part of Your World, and so far I absolutely adore it. And the male lead is so caring and attentive in the first book. I have a feeling that this second male lead will be similar to that. This has to do with misunderstanding, if I recall correctly, where the female lead has some kind of misunderstanding with the male lead in this novel. Because of that, she doesn't really like him. And that plays into what I want to call minor enemies to lovers. But we already know what I feel about enemies to lovers. Sometimes they aren't really enemies and they're actually just a lot of misunderstanding, which I'm assuming is what happens in this book. And one of the main things is actually he donates one of his kidneys to her brother, and that's why they kind of got started to talking to each other, and he actually calls in a favor from her. So I'm excited to see what that favor is and how their relationship grows. So after I finish Yours Truly, the next book on my priority list is going to be Percy Jackson, The Sea of Monsters. I don't know anything about this book. Like, I did not know anything about the first book. I actually have never read the Percy Jackson series as a child, but my husband has. He actually wants to get back into reading, but the only way I can get him to read is if I read the books that he's interested in. And he really wanted to reread the Percy Jackson series because there is a Disney Plus adaptation and he wants to watch it, but he doesn't want me to watch it until I read the books. So here's the second book. I'm going to make it a priority in the month of June. It will be my second read. So he will actually read the second book because apparently if I don't read it, he's not going to read it. So second priority for the month. It's not a first priority because one of the books is due out on loan. Therefore, I actually have to get it finished and return it to the library on time because I'm not trying to get any late fees. All right, after I finish the second book of the Percy Jackson series, I'm going to go in with probably King of Sloth, this book right here, or Funny Story. And I have both of these books, so I can go in with either or. Let's go in and talk a little bit of King of Sloth. This is a Grumpy meets Sunshine, where the Grumpy is the female and the Sunshine is the male lead. I find that a lot of books that have the grumpy meets sunshine trope is generally the male being grumpy and the female being sunshine. However, this is the role reversal. I'm super into that. I can't wait to see what it's about. I really enjoy the King of Sin series, the first book and the second book. Third book, not so much, but I have really high expectation because I really like Sloan as a character. We don't really know much about Xavier except for the fact that he's lazy from the second and the first book, but I'm really interested in seeing how the relationship plays out in this book. So this is definitely a high priority read for me. And then a funny story, I believe these two are going to be back to back with each other. So the reason why I'm pairing these two together is that King of Sloth is super spicy, has a lot of tension, has a lot of character dynamics that is really focused on the relationship aspect of it and the drama. Whereas Emily Henry's books, I find they tend to focus a lot more on relationship, friendship, family dynamics, and whatnot. So they are both in the same genre of romance. However, I find that they are on opposite sides of the spectrum, and you really get different flavors when you read both of these books, even though they are both romance books. I love how the same genre can just really hit different in different aspects. Like this one will be hot and spicy, but this one will make me bawl and cry because that's what Emily Henry's books do to you. Maybe I don't cry physically, but my heart hurts a lot of the time when I read Emily Henry's book because it's so true and it's so emotional. I really like the character dynamics in Emily Henry's books. So far, I've read Beach Read and Happy Place. Happy Place is definitely currently on my rank number 1, and then it's Beach Read. So I'm really excited to see what Funny Story is all about. I know it has to do with their exes falling in love with each other and therefore they end up being together. I'm not really sure about the plot or synopsis of the books. If there's something you need to know about me is I pick books on moods and vibes only. I go in blind majority of the time. And even if I've heard spoilers about it, I have a goldfish memory. This head retains zero information, okay? You can spoil me all you want. When I'm reading the book, when I get to that part that is super interesting or super crazy, I'm not even gonna remember you talked about this. I'm gonna experience it like I experienced it firsthand because my head is empty. All right, now I only have 2 books left on my TBR for the month of June. Let's talk about the first book, which I picked up at Costco because I was like, ooh, pretty. And it is the Five Broken Blades special edition version. It's so freaking gorgeous, and that's why I picked it up primarily. The second reason is because I found the synopsis to be pretty interesting. I don't know much about this book aside from the pocket sleeve of information that they give at the front, but basically, I believe this is an adult high fantasy novel, and I'm not sure if there's going to be multiple other books continuing on after this, but we're talking about 5 assassins trying to murder the King of Yusan. Yeah. Except the only thing that got me thinking is that in the synopsis itself, whoever kills the king gets the crown. So I'm over here thinking, I read a lot of romance historical books, right? And usually we have kings, we have the crown prince, and we have all the lineage of who gets the crown next if he were to die. So I'm over here thinking, you kill the crown and you can take it? So are these all blood relatives of the king? That got me really thinking. That sounds so good. I know that there's actually supposed to be 3 couples in here, which is wild. I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep up with them. Another thing that is different about this book is that there's multiple POVs. I'm not talking about 2. I'm talking about like 5. You get POVs of every single assassin, and that is also really interesting. However, I would have to say that usually I have a lot of trouble keeping up with the different POVs. I am someone who actually prefers third POV with a focus on a singular person because it's easier for me to understand and digest the flow. But I know a lot of people who really like specific POVs and the emotions and everything a singular person is going through, and I also get that. But when there's multiple POVs of them, sometimes I'm thinking, wait, whose thoughts are these? Because my brain is a goldfish. I already said this. My brain is a goldfish. So sometimes I'm reading the POV and I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. It's supposed to be a female. And then I realize, oh, it's in the male perspective now. So this is not high on my list to read at the moment, but I feel like I'm gonna get to it pretty soon just because the synopsis is very interesting to me. So the last book on my June TBR is going to be A Promise of Peridot. This is the second book of the Sacred Stones trilogy. The first book was full plot, slow burn, and character development. I absolutely ate that book up. It was so good. And for my first romantasy book, I was so glad that it was what I picked up because it was fast-paced enough, but slow enough for me to understand the world and be able to absorb the information about the world. The ending of the first book kept me on my toes, and that's why I pre-ordered this book ASAP. The only reason this book is not high in my priority list for my TBR is because this is the second book of a trilogy, and I know this book ends on a cliffhanger. Spoiler warning, the last book ended on a cliffhanger as well, and I'm assuming in this book, we're going to find out what happens to Arwen with the realization of who she is and how her relationship with Cain is going to progress, especially knowing what has happened and what's going to happen with the Onyx Kingdom. All right, that is it for my June TBR physical books edition. Let me know down in the comment section if you've read any of these books or what books you're going to be reading in June, because I'm always looking to add to my TBR list. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next Sunday for my main monthly wrap up. Bye!